Thank you for listening to the Conform to Christ podcast, where we seek to engage the mind, affect the heart, and call people to follow Christ. My name is George Mays, and here with me is Jay Jones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's going okay.
Yeah.
It's going okay.
Yeah. George is still...
It's been a morning.
George is in the throw-up phase of kids, and so every day is a surprise. Every day is like a new discovery of what kind of thing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, don't worry, soon they'll all be out of the throw-up phase.
I don't even care if they're out of the throw-up phase. Just make it to the toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then go back to bed and leave me alone. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that time of the year.
Yep. That's the fun of...
My wife is dealing with it right now as we speak. So I have a great wife, though.
Yep. Well, you'll make it, George. Tomorrow is the conference.
It is. Or, as people are listening, today is the conference.
Today is the conference, as this is released. Today is the Christ-Centered Churches Conference. The last one. Can you believe it? So what have we done in the Christ-Centered Churches Conferences? The conference. We started with
the gospel.
We started with the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, like people didn't
They
didn't love that.
Didn't like it.
Like, I guess they thought, like, oh, we got a collection of these Reformed Baptist churches. They're all Calvinist in their soteriology. Of course, we make that distinction. And not too wild about it. But it was on the gospel, so I don't know what's not to love about that.
But I would say that it was a success. The people that came, they really enjoyed it.
We did have one church who was friendly to us and let us use their building because we needed a bigger place.
Yeah.
It was nice.
For a couple of years.
Trinity, Trinity Church, Baptist Church.
Well,
Lawton.
If you remember, we were supposed to have it at this church. We were supposed to have it in this building, and that was when the flooding happened the first time. Walked in, and there was sewage everywhere. Yeah. So we were out of commission for several months. We had to move the conference to another location.
And then the next year, same place, it was the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. That was probably our biggest one. Tom Nettles came, and he preached a couple of times.
And we did the five solas.
He actually read a quote from Martin Luther verbatim.
Yeah, I did.
It had several cuss words in it. I thought some of the old ladies were going to fall out. You remember that, Larry? Yeah, he just read them like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, Luther.
Yeah, so we did the five solas. And then the next year was that the church, or was that...
I think it was.
We did the church, and then we did regeneration.
Yeah, we did.
Which one did we do?
Like the doctrine of the church, and then we did You Must Be Born Again.
Yes.
Doctrine of regeneration.
So the doctrine of the church and doctrine of regeneration.
And then the five soul.
And those were here. Those were in this building.
And then Tulip.
And then we did
the Doctrines of Grace.
The Doctrines of Grace.
It was called the Doctrines of Grace. Year. Well, it was a long time ago because it was right when COVID hit. The first year COVID hit, actually, and we still had the conference. And then the Trinity Conference, we've been trying to do this conference for like 2 years. It got canceled the first time. I can't remember why.
It was
but then we moved it to February. We said, hey, you know what? February will be the better time to do it.
Right.
So it was supposed to be this February. Ice storm hit. And our parking lot was covered with ice. Yeah. It was pure ice, like 2 inches deep. Impossible to have our conference.
Yeah.
And we're going to have it. Finally going to have it on the Trinity.
And there's severe weather.
Yeah, going to be tornadoes. It's like the crescendo.
Well, hopefully,
you're going to be preaching on Friday night, and there's going to be lightning, just bam, 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 bam.
Maybe.
It's going to be God's special effects for you.
Well, hopefully the weather will have moved out by tomorrow evening. It's supposed to be tonight into tomorrow afternoon, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, it is.
Hopefully tomorrow evening will be good.
What are you preaching on, George?
The Trinity in the Old Testament.
Okay. The Trinity in the Old Testament.
And I'm thinking maybe we'll need to do a free-for-all Friday on it because...
Well, I thought it'd be a good idea, actually.
People might have questions.
When I was thinking about, we were talking earlier about planning out some free-for-all Fridays. Not like this one. This one will be, who knows what'll happen on this show.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff. But we'll have some planned out.
Yeah.
And we said we'll do some eschatology ones. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Antichrist, whatever. It'll be good times, Mark of the Beast.
Yeah.
Is it a credit card? Is it the barcodes?
It's obviously the COVID vaccines, Jay.
Is it the COVID vaccine? Yeah. So we'll do that. Then we'll probably do the Doctrines of Grace.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good one. We'll do spend an episode on each the Doctrines of Grace. And I think it would be fun if we did each of our sermons as a free-for-all Friday.
Okay.
It'd be cool if we could pull Josh King in here too.
Yeah.
Maybe even Corey. I don't know how we get Dennis in here, but he's kind of far away.
Yeah.
Maybe we could Skype him in or something. Who knows? That'd be fun.
Yeah.
We could test our capabilities on the program. Get him up there on a little.
We haven't had a guest in a while.
I think that would be. I think that would be good. Maybe we'll do.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just start next week. We'll go with yours.
Yeah.
Trinity in the Old Testament. I know people are curious about that. To think, oh, did this just pop in out of nowhere?
Right.
Obviously, you're not going to say that it did. You're preaching a sermon from the Old Testament.
All right. Yeah.
So once people see like this type of stuff, though, is people shouldn't feel bad about not seeing it, because you're always learning, and you're never going to outlearn like what's in the Bible.
I think that I think a lot of people do think, well, this just pops into the New Testament, and maybe just a little teaser for the sermon. I think that the fact that the disciples just accept the Trinity without any arguments, and they just accept it. I think that should clue us into how they're reading the Old Testament.
Right. Yeah.
Perhaps it wasn't something that was entirely new to them.
Right.
So.
Yeah. There's some big clues.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason we have been reading and like not paying close attention to, maybe. You know what I mean?
We can talk about it more
like
next
the two
week.
The two Yahwehs.
Right. I think that the for whatever reason, I think that really at the scholarly level, the idea of the Trinity is just been accepted as kind of hinted at in the Old Testament, and then it's fully shows up in the New.
Right.
I'll read a quote from B.B. Warfield at the beginning of my sermon. I'm just going after B.B. Warfield like 5 minutes into my sermon.
There you go.
Just no fear. And I don't know. I think everyone just kind of accepts the standard interpretation of the Trinity in the Old Testament.
Right.
And I'm going to challenge it a little bit. And I think just looking at Isaiah 63, the text that I'm going to be looking at, I'm pushing back against some of the just accepted interpretation.
Yeah. Once you
people may not like it. They may be like, George has lost his mind.
Right.
That's the last conference. I don't care. It's the last one.
As I was looking at mine, preparing for what I'm doing imminent Trinity, or some call ontological Trinity. That's just who God is in His being. Like, who is He in Himself, apart from creation and redemption. So, before there was time, there was God. The only way we know about this is because He's revealed Himself in time.
Right.
But as I was looking through, I was like, man, what text can I use? I'm not comfortable preaching topical sermons.
Yeah.
I didn't.
We just don't do it. We don't do it very often.
So I was trying to say, like, what can I have as a text to ground me? And I never found one. So I'm preaching a purely topical sermon.
Okay. Mine's a hybrid.
But I almost landed on John 3:16.
Okay.
And Nicodemus and then John 3:16, because I think the imminent Trinity is revealed there in John 3:16, because he's his only son who is sent.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't love the world, so he had a son.
Yeah.
So, but I couldn't just get everything in I needed to. But what
and
I
Nicodemus
is
like, God doesn't have a son.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's
doesn't.
That's not his question.
But Jesus is, he makes the statement about being lifted up. He says another thing about being lifted up later in John, and the people are like, but we've heard that the Christ is to remain forever. So what they're talking about and what Jesus was talking about to Nicodemus is all in like Isaiah or Ezekiel 33 through 37. If you look in those 3 chapters, all 3 members of the Trinity are present.
Yeah.
It's very clear. I mean, so it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's all over the place.
And we have to, I think we have to assume that Ezekiel knew what he was talking about. Like, he's not, I'm afraid the way that a lot of people talk about the Trinity in the Old Testament, it verges on like the dictation theory of inspiration.
Well, what is that? People don't know
like
what that means.
God is just, the author is basically just a robot.
I call it the poltergeist theory.
Yeah, they're possessed and they're just writing it, or they're hearing it and they're just writing what they hear.
Right.
But they don't have any understanding about what they're writing.
Yeah. That's not what
I just can't buy it. I think that
they're carried along by the Spirit.
I think Isaiah and Isaiah 63, all 3 members of the Trinity are there. And I have to assume that Isaiah, he may not understand it the way that we understand it. I can accept that. But he knows, he has understanding about what he's writing.
Right.
So should be an interesting conference. Should be interesting, some interesting sermons. I'm looking forward to hearing the other guys.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm making a little glossary definitions. I was talking to Philip about this. You know, we both went to seminary. I never heard these words even in seminary, which is just sad.
Yeah.
And we had good seminary educations. We don't really jump into the Trinity and know the history and the words that were used to help understand. So I didn't learn this stuff till I got into my doctoral work.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't feel bad when they come to like, what are these words?
Oh yeah.
Well, they're the words that all Christians used to know. Like, not just the pastors, like all Christians used to know these words.
Right.
So we should maybe start using them again. Looking forward to it, for sure.
You're going to come out with a dictionary of historical Christian terms that every Christian should know?
I don't know about that.
Oh.
I don't know about that.
Just trying to help you make money.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a video for you, Jay. Transitioning from a serious topic to whatever this is.
Okay.
And then we can go wherever you want to go, Jay.
This is all you got for me today? Is this video?
I've got some other stuff, but I definitely wanted to show this. This was sent to us from one of our church members.
Okay.
He thought that it was pretty funny, so he sent it to me, and I said, "This is definitely free for all Friday material," and I just thought we'd play it.
All right. Let's see it.
Just today, you walk in some of them, there's more beards in there than there are out in the street.
I thought that was Stone Cold Steve Austin for a second.
I'm going to tell you something. Facial hair is not apostolic. However you want to cut it, it's compromise.
Oh, man.
I don't care if your leader says you can wear a beard, honey. Beard's nothing more than pride. You're not going to be dipped in Holy Ghost oil and run around looking like the world. We don't need beards. We need more oil. We need more Joashes. We need more people in an altar. We need more prayer rooms. We need more people digging into the things of God.
What in the world? And that's the bottom line. Because Paul
You can
said
look in the
so.
recipe of anointing. You'll never find beards, Brother Epley. You can look in the recipe.
Does he not sound like Stone Cold? And he looks like if Stone Cold Steve Austin just stopped working out.
Oh, he just let himself go?
Yeah, he went to McDonald's for three meals a day, just let himself go. Maybe that is him. Do you think that's him?
No, I don't, Jay.
Sounds just like him, man. It kind of looks like him.
Oh, man.
Who's shaving their beard first, George? You want the Holy Spirit, don't you? Better shave.
I don't want to be a compromiser, Jay.
You better shave that beard.
I don't want to be a compromiser. So it's not apostolic.
How weird would it be if think about like Jesus in the Middle East? How weird would it be if he didn't have a beard?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's such a strange take.
Mm-hmm.
Like when did men actually really get serious about shaving their beards? Was it like in the Enlightenment period? I think there's probably a strong link to homosexuality involved.
Of course you do.
That's my guess. What do you think, Larry? I think that's a good theory.
I mean,
that's as good a theory as any.
the Victorian era.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
But
it's probably.
It's just a weird take. One. What a weird thing to really hone in on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all these other issues. This guy is definitely an IFBer.
Right.
I don't even need to see anything else to know this guy's an independent fundamental Baptist.
Yeah.
Just such a weird thing to hone in on.
You can tell by his style of preaching.
Yeah. Out of all the stuff you could go after guys wearing beards.
Well, you know what he's really going after. You know what the IFB is going after. You know what they always go after. It's going after Calvinists.
Yeah.
Who brought beards back?
Yeah, you're probably
Who brought
right.
beards back to America?
You're probably
literally
right.
the Reformed resurgence in Calvinist brought beards back into fashion in America. Now even non-Christian men are wearing beards.
Yeah.
You're welcome. We saved you from feminism. You're welcome. Enjoy your masculinity.
You can send your thank you cards to 1601.
You know, even in the military they wore beards until chemical warfare came about, and then of course you got to shave your beard because you want your gas mask to work really well, obviously. So,
but this idea that beards are not apostolic, it's compromise. What do you do with the fact that they literally pulled out Jesus's beard at his trial? He had to have one before they could pull it out.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's laws in the Old Testament about them not trimming the corners of their beards.
Yeah. I trim the corner of my beard. Did you know that? I don't like it because mine will grow like way back here. Like if let's see here. Look at the picture. There you go. Look how crystal clear that picture is. This sucker will grow back here, and it just connect to the hair on the back of my head. It'd grow all the way around, make a loop. It'd be like a circle there where my ear is. That's what my beard will do. So I have to trim the corner of my beard. But
you're not being kosher.
I am New Covenant.
You're not being kosher.
I'm New Covenant and a Gentile. So
right,
yeah, I trim the corner of my beard.
So for the two people that are still listening, hopefully this has been instructive.
Yeah, I mean the beards. I almost feel like men are obligated in a sense now to grow beards because the gender confusion that's going on today, right? The blending of genders, that men are dressing like women are dressing like men, and all of this, and the fluidity. I think growing the beard is a way to combat it. You know what I mean? Like I'm resisting the insanity of the culture. You know what I mean? It's a cause. It's a good cause that men can get behind. Grow a beard, maintain God's distinctions between the genders. What do you think?
Yes. Even desiring God Even Desiring God, Piper. Well, this is an article by Greg Morse.
Uh-huh.
It's called "Oh Beard, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it about what I was just saying?
It's about how there's a connection between manhood and growing a beard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can't do it for your job, I got it. Don't feel bad about it. But if you can, why not? Unless your wife doesn't like it. That's what I always default to. If your wife's like, you know what, I prefer you're clean shaven, then always go with what's your wife.
Here's the
what the wife likes.
You'll enjoy this. You'll enjoy this. This is the last paragraph in this article. You can look this up on Desiring God. Oh beard, where art thou? He says that makes literal beards, in my opinion, worth having. Beards protest against a world gone mad. In other words, beards beard. They testify in their own bristly way that sex distinctions matter, that manhood will not be so easily shaven, shorn, or chopped by the Hanuns of this world. Its itchy and cheeky voice bears witness. Male and female, he created them.
There you go. It's pretty good.
So there you go.
And then, of course, you've got this quote by Spurgeon. Have you heard it? Spurgeon's famous quote.
I've got a shirt that's.
Oh, do you have
got a
shirt
that has it? I would have worn. I would have worn it today if I would have known this is the direction we were going.
You've got John Calvin.
I've got John Calvin with.
He's got a weird beard
with his beard.
He's got a strange beard, but he is French, so I'll give him a little grace. You know, they've got their quirks. They eat snails and stuff, so he's got a strange skinny beard. You could actually do that.
Listen to this.
You could pull that skinny beard thing off.
I've been told that I've been able to do that before.
You should try it at least once.
I think I should try the John Calvin beard.
Yeah.
Listen to this line from this article. He says, "We paste false beards on women and shave the beards of men, catechizing the children that there isn't any difference." A pretty hard-hitting article from Desiring God. They don't always have. They're not always as direct as this. So.
Yeah. That's right. Growing a beard is a habit most natural, scriptural, manly, and beneficial. Charles Spurgeon.
Do you know the context of that quote?
I don't.
Have you read his lectures?
Lectures to my students? Yes, I've read that.
It's in there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where that's from. He's talking about protecting the voice, protecting your voice.
Oh yeah, keeping the neck warm, huh?
Well, he says that, and Spurgeon's not a doctor. He's living in his own,
definitely not.
He's living in his own time period, right? He's living in the 1800s.
He used to think it warmed his throat up to smoke a cigar before he preached.
Yeah.
I think it might have done the opposite.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He's talking about guys that when they're out walking in the cold, they wear a scarf around their necks. Yeah. And he says you should let your throat be exposed to the cold air. And if you really need something to cover your throat, grow a beard instead of wrapping a scarf around it.
It is for sure.
I don't know where he got his medical degree. I don't know where he's getting his information.
Well,
I've got a beard, and if it's really cold, I'll wear a scarf also. So.
Yeah, that is back in the day when they were like leeching people and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the context of the quote is in the context of these pastors and protecting their voices.
Yeah.
So,
right.
What are we
good
doing
stuff?
Today?
The beards.
What are we doing?
Well, it's Free for All Friday, like we said.
What are we doing here?
This is True Free for All Friday. I gotta bring something up.
Okay.
This man here, or I don't know that he's a man actually. This purple demigod Thanos from the Marvel Universe. Let me show a little clip of him. Intro. The next video I'll show you. When he meets Doctor Strange in Infinity War, he's on his home planet Titan. You know, he's talking about how he had a plan, and because the planet was overpopulated and all this stuff, his plan was to wipe out half of this planet, or it would be unbiased, to be at random draw for rich and the poor alike. But half of the population of the planet had to go because overpopulation was going to destroy the planet. And so he's a good secular humanist, right? And this is what he says. I'm going to play a clip of it. Let's listen to what he says about mercy. You ready?
I am.
All right, check it out.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
I'm a survivor.
Who wants to murder trillions.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that mercy.
There you go. All right, George. Mercy. If it all 6 stones, he just snaps and cease to exist. He has God-like power. You know, you get all those stones, and then you can do anything.
Right.
So, you
know
what I'm going to show you next?
You know, why doesn't he just snap his fingers and double all the resources in the
double the size of the universe?
In the universe.
That's because he is a psychopath.
They called him a madman.
He's a psychopath.
Maybe he
right?
was. Yeah.
And so are the people on The View. That's the perfect segue. A table full of psychopaths. Okay. So let's watch this next clip, please.
Okay.
Anne Hathaway.
Not going into too many details, my own personal experience with abortion, and I don't think we talk about this enough, abortion can be another word for mercy. We don't know. We don't know. It's not a world in which we know that no 2 pregnancies are alike, and it follows.
George,
oh my goodness,
George, it's a mercy. Killing a baby is actually a mercy, George.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that baby to be born to a poor family, would you? Would it be terrible? And of course, this is the dirty little secret about how many African American babies are aborted. It's a mercy, George. It's just a mercy. Women got to have the right to show mercy.
Well, we talked about this when that individual contacted us months ago,
right?
About how we should stop having babies.
Yeah,
because you're bringing these children into this terrible world, and they might experience suffering and hunger, and yeah,
it's a mercy. But of course, this is this is what you have to do when you're appeasing your conscience. And when people are even if they're not believers do this too. But people have to appease their conscience because God's given them a conscience to restrain evil. And so if you're going to purposefully go against that, go against everything in your nature as a woman, which is to have a child and to nurture a child, you're going to have to redefine terms about things. You're going to have to redefine that this isn't really a baby, which is crazy. Because in the next couple sentences, she'll call this a baby, but then they'll change terms and call it fetus all the time.
You just don't know, Jay. You just don't know.
Yeah, and then you got to redefine the word abortion and not murder or kill. And then, of course, now it's not even that; it's mercy. It's mercy. So this is what people do when they sin. Believers do it too, though, to justify their sin, right? They'll not be truthful about it.
Oh, yeah.
Redefine words, redefine terms to appease. It's just a way to appease the conscience. Yeah. So I just thought I'd show that to you.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going, right? I mean, planet's overpopulated. We got a bunch of old people. We don't want them stuck in a nursing home. We don't have resources to take care of them. It's actually a mercy if we just get rid of them. That's where it's all going.
Came across this article, and the headline just caught my attention. This is from PBS.
Okay.
You know what PBS is, Jay?
Yeah, I do.
Do you know who funds?
Yeah, we
PBS?
do. We fund PBS. Right? Don't we, the taxpayer?
Yeah. Here's this article. I can pull it up on the screen. Analysis: political rhetoric, false claims obscure the history of drag performance.
Yeah. What? Crazy.
I can pull up the tweet. This was let's see if I can do this. There it is. This was a tweet from PBS. The recent headlines about disruptions of drag events and their portrayal as sexual and harmful to children can obscure the art form and its rich history.
It's art form, huh? It's rich history. It's rich history. This. How long does this go back? How long? Anybody know? Anybody know how long this goes back?
Drag may trace its roots to the age of William Shakespeare, when female roles were performed by men.
I think this goes way back longer. I mean, it wasn't drag, but men have been performing in women's roles, I think, longer than Shakespeare, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They became a mainstay at gay bars throughout the 20th century and remain so.
Can't believe it.
I know. It's
so weird.
You
it's
learn
so weird.
something new every day, don't you?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
You know where I learned about this drag stuff? Do you want to know?
Sure.
You want to know?
Sure. Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee '2, my friend.
I wasn't expecting that answer. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't Crocodile Dundee 2.
That's 2 of the greatest American movies ever made, by the way, George.
Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee 1 and 2. Crocodile Dundee 2, he goes to New York City.
What about Crocodile Dundee 3?
It's all right. I mean, it's not bad. It's not number 1 or 2, but he goes to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the end of 1? Now I'm confused. He might go there at the end of 1 and 2. He's there. I don't know. Anyway, he goes to a bar, and there's a girl there, like a large girl. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
But it's not a girl. And he does a check because he's like super country, but in an Australian way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a dude. And I was like, what is this? That's when I learned. That's when my innocence was lost. At that moment.
At that moment, you can trace it back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That was it. That's how I learned. But nowadays, they you can learn in your local library.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn in your local library. So, what a strange world. It's almost like people were warning about this about 10 years ago. You know? Like the direction we were headed. I believe like most pastors were warning about this stuff.
Yeah.
People said that there's no slippery slope. There's no slippery slope here. There's no slippery slope involved. Yep, here we are now. You know what I always notice about these, George?
You got PBS defending
There's
drag performances and its rich history.
We can't show this clip. We can't show the clip because it's too vulgar. But the last one I saw of one of these drag shows was in Texas, and I was surprised that something like this would happen in Texas. But I mean, the dancing is super vulgar, and like,
yeah,
the person is like barely has any clothes on. There's these little kids, and guess who I didn't see in there?
Guys,
no men,
yeah,
no men at all, because these women are going along with the culture,
right,
and exposing their children to it. But where are the men at? No men, George. No men at all. This is the problem.
Yeah. Let's just play the devil's advocate and say that there is a rich history for drag performances.
Mm-hmm.
The scriptures are clear that men shouldn't dress like women.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
So even if there's a rich history of it, who cares?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Basic.
Just because something has a rich history doesn't mean that it's okay.
Yeah.
Child sacrifice has a rich history.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean, it goes back far, far earlier than drag performances.
Yes.
But we wouldn't stand for that.
Right. Human sacrifice, not just child sacrifice, human sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotta celebrate the, remember when we had it was Columbus Day. It used to be called Columbus Day. Now it's called Indigenous Peoples Day.
Uh-huh.
There's a couple of memes people made of like the Aztecs, and how it's like Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's like their own artwork, you know.
Yeah.
They're pulling some dude's heart out and like throwing it down the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can watch Apocalypto. You ever see that?
I've seen
by
clips of it.
Mel Gibson.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen all of it.
He covers that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But this is every culture. It's not just the indigenous peoples that practiced human sacrifice.
Right.
I mean, it's on every continent on the planet.
Yeah. You can dress it up however you want and call it mercy. You can put it behind sterile walls of some kind of medical clinic. We still are doing child sacrifice.
Yeah.
They may not claim to be sacrificing their children to Molech or to the sun god or whatever, but they're sacrificing their child for convenience or their career or whatever you want to.
Right.
They're still doing it, even in our enlightened culture, in our advanced 21st century America culture. We're still doing human sacrifices.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Very true. We may have to do an episode on trans stuff because somebody actually submitted something. I can't remember where it was at. They were like, hey, do one on Pentecost, which we've showed that person before, that Pentecost person. We may have to do an episode on that. Like, if you love women, then you have to fight against this.
Yeah.
It's so strange to me that the women who are so like, vocal and for women's rights are just cool with dudes like taking over their stuff and saying they're women. It's so strange.
Yeah, and it's all just a big grift. And it should be so obvious because you've got these men dressing up like women and winning these awards and getting all the accolades, but you don't see the women dressing up like men getting the same treatment. So you've got, the weirdos in the Biden administration, the men that are dressed up like women and getting, Women of the Year. You've got the dude that thinks he's a woman swimming with the all girls team and getting all this applause.
Yeah.
You've got men dressing up like women and winning beauty pageants.
Hang on to it all, George. We're gonna have to do an episode on it.
Okay.
Hang on to it.
But you don't. You don't see the women dressing up like men getting this, and you see that it's the culture destroying women.
Yeah,
it's destroying women.
Yeah, so men are going to have to start speaking up about this. I mean, it's an attack. It's just an attack on women, really, on real women.
Yeah,
that's what it is. So, you'd think those liberal women who are, those rabid the kind, that rabid feminists that nobody likes, like not even themselves.
Yeah,
you'd think they'd be speaking up.
The women of the View,
but they can't. Yeah, you'd think the View, but even like J.K. Rowling, she's people they try to destroy her.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Let's talk about this though.
Okay.
The time we got left. This will be good. Let's take this segment here. Will be about biblical interpretation, right? So we come from the tradition that follows that where we actually believe that there is a creator, God, who is personal, intelligent, super intelligent, the perfection of all intelligence, and communicates, it interacts with his creation and with human beings. And part of that is language. So God condescends to us to communicate with us in ways we can understand. And since he's God, well, he would know how to communicate with us. And so we believe God's communication is recorded in Scripture, that the Scriptures are God's communication to humans. So, and he preserved that through time so that you could have access to it. So when we go to the Word, the Bible, we're going to it, and we're trying to actually say, okay, this is a language, and words have meaning inside sentences, right? And sentences, George, they have meaning inside paragraphs. Paragraphs, they have meaning inside the wider context. Maybe we would call a thought section or a chapter, and that has meaning inside the book as a whole. Just like if I wrote you a letter or you wrote me one, we'd actually read it that way. And that's the way we come to the Bible, because that's how communication works. And we take it
in other words,
we take it at face
right.
value. And we take it at face value.
In other words, you read your Bible like you would read a book.
Right.
I have an English literature degree, and I remember how revolutionary it was when several years after I graduated with this degree, being confronted with this very obvious idea that the Bible is a book and you read it like you would read a book.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't read it. You don't read a book by just flipping it open to whatever and pointing,
right,
and reading a sentence and ripping it out of its context.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what people do with their Bibles.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't read a chapter in a book backwards, or ignore the opening of a chapter and the ending of the chapter and just read the middle of the chapter. You'd start at the beginning and you would read it through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you read your Bible.
Right.
But that's how a lot of people don't read their Bible.
Right. Yeah.
So the Bible it's more than a book. It's a divinely inspired book. So it's not Harry Potter.
Right.
But it's not something less than a book.
Right.
So we should read it like it's a book.
You know what we should do? We should do an episode on biblical interpretation.
Are you jotting these down? Or are you jotting down these?
We're stacking them up, buddy. This is like the setup episode.
Okay.
This is like what do they call this? The prologue. Prologue to all several future episodes coming. So literal, historical, grammatical interpretation is one way that people describe this. So briefly, because we'll do an episode on it, literal, historical, grammatical, we read the Bible literally. Now, what that doesn't mean is we throw all other considerations out the window. So if we come to apocalyptic literature, we don't think there's actually a gigantic monster coming out of the sea.
Speak for yourself, Jay.
Right. Well, there are some people who actually probably do think there's going to be a gigantic monster coming out. Nor do we read the Song of Solomon that way either. We understand that there's allegory, there's metaphor, there's all kinds of things that, and you should take those for what they are. Historical. You're gonna get to the meaning of the text when it was written, right? Because the text can't mean something magically that it didn't mean then. So, the people will read who had access to John's letters and then Revelation. They knew what he was talking about, or Paul's letters. Like they knew what he was saying. We are to find that meaning before we can apply it to ours, grammatical, which we already talked about. Like we understand the grammar and all of that. Mm-hmm. If you want to actually know what God says, you have to do that. There's other methods. I mean, you got all kinds today, which we'll talk about. But what made me think of this was this little picture you sent me. And that's what I want to show.
Okay.
Let's bring it up and we'll talk about it. So this, I don't know who made this. Where'd you find this?
I don't even remember.
You don't know where you found
I don't
this?
even remember.
You sent this to me on Reformation Day.
I'm always farming memes.
Yeah.
And I don't always know where I got them from.
Man.
Yeah.
So they got Martin Luther. He's nailing the 95 Thesis on the church doors in Wittenberg. Who's this other guy over here? Is that his buddy? Melanchthon, Philip Melanchthon?
Maybe. I don't know.
But the text says, if Martin Luther knew nailing his 95 Thesis to the doors of the Wittenberg churches would eventually lead to lesbian bishops, rock concert worship, and grape juice communion, he would have just sucked it up and paid his indulgences. It's kind of a funny meme.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, but it got me kind of thinking. It got me thinking, what was he critiquing? Like he had an issue with how the Catholic Church was approaching the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had overlaid on top of it a greater authority,
Right.
the tradition of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And they were reading the Bible, not how we are promoting you read the Bible. So I found, I think I got it. I think I can actually put it on the screen. I found this amazing thread. Let me see if I can pull it up before we switch. It's by Brad Clausen. Dr. Brad Clausen works at the Master's Seminary. And he was my advisor on my dissertation on the problem of evil and suffering. And he's like really good. I think he's probably one of the sharpest guys there, and he's really, really hard. That's why I picked him, because I knew he was going to make it like really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed you, I came in and lamented to you for a little bit. I was like, I don't know if I should have picked this guy as my advisor. So he lists, like, he gives me this list of books. So I read as much in my degree as someone would for a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you just need to read this if you're going to write on this. This is important. This is an important topic. And so he made me send him a schedule of when I would have all these books read by, the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad he did it. It was great. But look at this thread. It's just perfect for this little meme that you sent me. And it plays into a lot of the problems that plague the church today. Can you switch over to this? I'll read through it. It's kind of a longer thread. He says, not only did Luther rebuke Erasmus, so maybe can you tell the people who is Erasmus and why are Luther and Erasmus like in an argument, in a fight?
Well, Erasmus was a Roman Catholic scholar, and he was seeing a lot of the same abuses as Luther, but he was not coming to the same conclusions. If you remember Luther's book, The Bondage of the Will, that was in response to Erasmus.
Right. Yeah.
And Luther actually says that out of all the people who are in opposition,
right,
to the Reformation,
uh-huh,
he said Erasmus is the only one that's gotten to the heart of the issue.
Right.
And the heart of the issue is the bondage of the will.
Uh-huh.
Can man naturally respond to the gospel?
Yeah. Or has sin so
has sin so
wrecked,
captivated him.
Yeah, so that you're in bondage.
Mm-hmm.
He has one of the most hardcore takedowns of all time, Luther, in writing to Erasmus. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I do.
So apparently he didn't. In one instance, when Erasmus wrote and released a book or a pamphlet or something, Luther didn't respond. People were like, "Oh, Luther's going to blow this up. He's going to, whatever." And he waited like a whole year. And in the introduction to that, he said, "I waited this long to respond, not because I wasn't ready to or able, but because I thought surely Erasmus can write something better than this than this tripe, and will." Yeah. Write something better. Mm-hmm. But he never did, so I'll respond. I was like, he's so savage, man.
Yeah.
So that's Erasmus Luther. All right. So he says, not only did Luther rebuke Erasmus for his regular retreat into allegory to avoid the simple meaning of biblical text, Luther rebuked Erasmus for his rationalism. Erasmus claimed that a literal approach to text about the state of the human will led to absurd conclusions, and this is rationally unacceptable. Luther counters, absurdity, then, is one of the principal reasons for not taking the words of Moses and Paul literally. Human reason is offended, who, although she is blind, deaf, stupid, impious, and sacrilegious with regard to all the words and works of God, is brought in at this point as a judge of the words and works of God. So maybe let's stop for a second there and see what he's saying. Luther is saying human reason is so bound in sin that it's rendered us to the things of God blind, deaf, stupid, and impious, and sacrilegious in regards to God's words and his work. So why then would I bring that in as the point, the main point, as the judge of God's words and his works?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's his logic. He goes on to say, Luther pointed to the absurdity of such cardinal doctrines as the incarnation. So the absurdity, according to the human will, as such cardinal doctrines as the incarnation, the virgin birth, Christ's crucifixion, and his ascension, all doctrines which we arrive at, by the way, by a literal interpretation. It is absurd to believe in such things, Luther says, but we must. Luther then points to where such reasoning had led others. Let us therefore invent some tropes with the Arians to prevent Christ from being literally God. Let us invent tropes with the, how do you say this, Manichees to prevent his being truly human and make him a phantom that slipped down through the Virgin like a ray of light through a piece of glass and was crucified. That will be a fine way for us to handle the Scriptures, but tropes are no use and there is no avoiding the absurdity. It is often stated that a retrieval of the hermeneutic of Erasmus and Origen is the best way to counter the rationalism spawned by the Enlightenment. Not according to Luther's arguments. Rationalism survives just as fine as Alexandrian allegory. So that last bit, people might understand. There is the Alexandrian school was allegorical in their interpretations. Mm-hmm. It's where you would get a lot of strange.
So give us, can you give us an example of allegory?
So,
I mean, the most famous one is Augustine's allegory of the Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan, yeah. Well, let's pull them in. I want to pull them in. I want to pull in the two schools of interpretation. We'll save that for later.
Okay.
For that episode. But think about what he's saying, and it's totally clear. If we rely on human reason as the main grounding of our interpretation, right? So not taking God at his word, like that God knows how to communicate. He put down what he put down, and we can understand it. Luther says you're going to end up denying the incarnation, because that's an absurdity, which is exactly what agnostics do. They say this defies all reason. Yeah, it defies reason.
Right.
Incarnation, virgin birth, Christ's crucifixion, resurrection, his ascension. And the Trinity. He didn't put that on here, but
yeah.
But this is how people interpret the Bible today, and this is how we ended up. This is the linkage. So to that original meme, Luther was critiquing the very kind of hermeneutics that gave us lesbian bishops. Well, not us, because we don't have lesbian bishops, but the church as a whole. Lesbian bishops, rock concert worship services, grape juice communion. But lesbian bishops, how do we get those? Was it from a literal interpretation of the text?
No, I mean they'll dance all around the passages that are talking about homosexuality, or women preaching, being in those leadership roles.
Yeah,
the hermeneutics that they use are all over the place, but they're not just a straightforward literal interpretation of the passage.
Right. Yeah. So I don't agree with the meme. It's kind of funny meme.
That's a funny meme.
I would say he would nail it even harder.
Yeah.
If he knew what was coming. So, and just thank God. Like, these people should just thank God there's no time machine. Because if Luther was alive today, he would break Twitter. Twitter would break. He'd break the internet. People would be trying to actually string him up and burn him alive. He'd be the most hated man in all of the Christian church.
Yeah. Yeah, he would be.
He'd be like a bull. He would literally be a bull in a china shop, just breaking everything. Yep. So, but we've got to be nuanced, George. Got to be nuanced today, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to be? That's what they tell us.
Winsome.
Winsome,
We
yeah.
have to be winsome.
Gotta be winsome.
We have to be winsome.
Yeah. All right, I'm done.
Are you done?
I'm all talked out.
Shutting it down?
Well, you got to shut it down.
I've got to shut it down. Oh,
yeah, I did it twice the other day.
Oh,
that means you got to do it twice.
Poor Jay.
Right?
Poor Jay. All right. Well, we've been all over the place today. I'm going to have to go back and think about all the stuff that we talked about before I can write a description for this episode. But hopefully it's been beneficial. Hopefully, as we are bringing in some things that, some headlines and thoughts from our culture, it's helping you to see where we are as a society. But then as we're critiquing it, hopefully you're seeing how we need to have a biblical worldview that's grounded on Scripture and on the literal meaning of the Word of God. So if this has been helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, share. Please feel free to write us a comment or ask a question, and we will do our best to address it on the show. And we will see you next time.